Jesus. This one. Yeah, what I've been thinking, because we went from the Great Reset, and I think we left it at a point as, well, where does that leave the individual? Where does that leave you and I, while the satanic people are resetting things? And on Sunday evening, I listened to rather an appropriate, based on the conversation we had, conversation from Simon Parks. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And that was very interesting, because he also spoke about the reset. Can you believe it? I mean, yeah, and he was rather upbeat. Okay, because he says yes, that the reset is happening. Okay. And it's really been sparked by the Ukraine, he says. And he says the biolabs now that were definitely sponsored by the American Congress, okay, and they were their labs, and it's for everybody to see their documents about when things were discussed back 2 years ago or 3 years ago, okay, or whenever they were setting it up. And now they've been trying to hide it, okay, the documents, but you know, it's public domain, so people had them already. And so it's a matter now, Simon says, you know, where do they go now to open labs? Okay, you know, which countries are possibility, and they suggest maybe Croatia might be a possibility. But
I sort of get the impression that it needs to be in that European region, does it?
Yes.
For whatever reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It needs to be far away from America, okay? And it needs to be quite near Russia and China, okay? So, yeah. And then he also spoke about something that's interesting, but I don't keep my sort of a watch on it. He says that we alluded to it on Sunday when I spoke about the petrodollar, okay? And what's that? Because people are not paying for their petrol now, between country and country, with the petrodollar, they're paying with other currencies and other means, including cryptocurrency. Okay, that the stock exchange in the United States has been slowly, for a few months now, slowly declining. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay. And he seems to think that's very purposeful, because it doesn't want to cause panic. You know, when it suddenly drops dramatically, then people do all the unwise things. And so it's just slowly going. And he said, you know, that's going to be where part of the reset is that now they're trying to get a dollar cryptocurrency going. Okay, and we spoke about that on Sunday, and so did Simon Sparks. I mean, it's almost like he was listening in on our conversation, I think. Yeah, but he so that he was speaking a lot about things that we alluded to or mentioned on Sunday. But it was only a couple of hours after we spoke that I listened to him. And then I also listened to Alatra leader. Because, you know, after our conversation about the previous week about, you know, we need a leader. Okay, if you remember that. And so I didn't purposely go and search it, but on my Telegram, up came Alatra, and there he was. Okay, so I thought, okay, let's just listen to him. Okay, and it's again, it was very interesting. But you know, he calls a spade in a very polite sort of way, and he he was talking about again that, you know, white people just can't see that climate change is happening and it's here, okay, and it has very little to do with carbon dioxide, okay.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, what is it? He says he just can't understand what why people are still sort of looking at this thing as some sort of man-made destruction. And he said the evidence is everywhere of the climate change, and it doesn't matter where you look. And so, yeah, he sort of labored that point. But I'm glad he did, because it's, you know, we know it, you and I know it, and but he just doesn't understand why, you know, all these countries, these first world countries around are not, they can't all be bad, he says, you know. So yeah, it was interesting talking to him, and very level-headed, very quietly spoken, and never an emotion. Okay.
No, that's right. It's always just very matter of fact, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then, of course, it's so interesting because from time to time you have the translator changing, you know, and so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So funny hearing an accent. You sort of think whether you close your eyes because you're basically just listening to him. You don't have to watch him.
Yeah.
And so this translator is so not Russian, if you know what I mean, or Ukrainian. Yeah, and then the next time you listen to somebody else is interpreting it. So his accent changes. Yeah.
So was the gist of what he had to say was just one of sort of amazement, disbelief, not so much disbelief, but
of disbelief. Disbelief. It was probably disbelief of the fact that people aren't waking up to it. Okay. And he says, you know, the facts are everywhere. So it's, you know, he says it's probably not about waking up. You know, there's some, you know, other agenda, and the people that are awake are just accepting it. Okay. And just moving along with it. And he said, you know, people must stand up and see for themselves and recognize what's happening. And it's time for countries and people that can influence it to start making arrangements for this climate change and start talking about it, rather than just allowing people to die under volcanic eruptions and floods and fires. And, you know, it's, so that was the sort of essence of what he was talking about for an hour, I suppose. Yeah. I don't know what happened to, there was only the one woman on the table with him, not the alien, the other one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it sort of raises a question, you know, because I suppose in one sense, you know, like when people see someone as a leader, they look to them for guidance or action or those sorts of things. And, you know, when he sort of speaks and you know, just espouses his disbelief and disappointment, you know, it's sort of, for people who are looking to him for a solution, which he's already given anyway, you know, it's something that, you know, it's sort of funny, you know, in one sense, because I was listening to, you know, this book I've been listening to every day now.
Yeah.
And he was talking about, you know, Zen students and Zen masters and that sort of thing. And he was saying how, like, you know, most students, when they go and see a Zen master, you know, they're looking for guidance and they're looking for answers and things like that. And particularly like the Japanese style of Zen is there never is. Because the bottom line of it is that it's not real, you know. So
yeah, that's true. It's also
yeah.
been part of my thinking since Sunday as well. Sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't saying too much
Yeah.
more about it, but you know, and it's sort of interesting is that, you know, no matter, you know, like a student could say, you know, you've said to us that we need to, you know, let go of things, you know. Well, what about the very act of getting dressed and preparing meals? What do we do about that? You know, and he says, well, you get dressed and you prepare your meal. You know?
Yeah, but it's that the comment you make is very interesting, because when I think of Moya and Logos, you know, he talks about the left stream and the right stream, okay, and they both don't basically lead you anywhere, and there's only the neuter stream, okay,
the middle way,
which leads directly to God, okay. So if you try and be evil, you're going to land up in trouble. If you try and be good, you're going to land up in trouble. Okay, you know, in other words, you're trying to get positive karma or negative karma, you know, you're going to land up in trouble because of your intent. Okay, but understand that this is not a reality worth wondering about. Okay, that we live in. Okay, and that the reality, the neutra, a power stream or reality, or that leads to reality, which is God. Okay, that's the only thing. So you think about, well, how do I do the neuter thing? Okay, because immediately that's the wrong thought. Okay, because
that's right. Yeah.
You're saying, how do I do? Okay, and it's not about doing. Okay? It's about being, and this is my interpretation now, and since our conversation on Sunday, it's about being neutral. Yes, you get up and you get dressed and you eat and you go to work. Okay, but you don't allow yourself an intention of something that's really not necessary in this fantasy world, okay, or this unreal world. Okay, now at this moment, as I'm talking, I'm thinking, okay, I've just been, my throat's been cut, you could say, and now, you know, do I go and try and repair it, okay, and put bandages around it and try and keep going where I shouldn't be going, okay, because, you know, the road has come to an end, okay, well, part of the road has come to an end. I've no doubt, we were talking about this in December when I thought the road had come to an end, if you remember, with Get Set Up. But now it's a matter of, well, let's just get up and get dressed and eat and go about our lessons that we've got, or whatever work we've got, and then something unreal will crop up in the unreal world, okay, and take us to the next lesson, or to the next 9-year cycle, okay, so. And I guess that's a spiritual life, okay. I think that is, so
it's a subtle line, but at the same time, you know, as lots of spiritual things are, is paradoxical. It's subtle but profound at the same time, isn't it? You know, because it's exactly as you've described it. You know, your first reaction is, well, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Well, what you need to do so to speak, is be awake to where you are and what you are and who you are, and you know, the moment that's unfolding before you, and engage with it fully.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? You know, do I get dressed? Well, of course,
Just get dressed and eat and move forward. Okay, go to work. Okay. Yeah, coming back to Logos and to Moya, you know, and we've spoken about it over the years, you and I, that, you know, the different ages in the entire cosmos that we live in, okay, the physical, the duality cosmos, okay, and you know, from the golden age where everything was apparently glorious, and whatever it was, the silver and the bronze. Now we're in the iron age, okay, which is the last age, okay, and the mere sound of the word iron means hard, okay, it means tough, okay, and it's there to make people think differently and become aware for the last chance. Basically, they don't know it's for the last chance. So, but the tougher it is, then the more they're going to think of, well, is this reality? Okay, or is this a lesson of some description? Or however they think, I don't know who, you know, but generally, times in an iron age, the three-dimensional duality world gets tough, okay, tougher than it's ever been in the history of the creation of this dimension, this duality dimension. So it's happening as it's designed to happen, okay, but we know, and that's what everybody else needs to know, is if you get up, get dressed, have something to eat, go to work, okay, and not get pulled this side or this side, okay, and allow yourself to get emotional about either side, okay.
Yeah, don't get angry, don't get saintly, just
yes,
be there for what shows up.
Yeah, and you know, if you're going to do something good, then you mustn't have the intent. It must just happen naturally, like getting dressed, okay. You know, it becomes part of you, okay, and so you move forward with it. But as soon as you say, well, you know, I want to really get some good karma going here, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to help all the street children, you know, so that I can get a spiritual clap on the back, okay.
Yeah, but you might find yourself when you run out there that those street children beat you up, you know.
That's right. Oh my goodness, did you see some of those images on TV? Yeah, these adults beating up women, eh?
No, I didn't see it. But,
oh, you lucky man. You know, I always like to see the weather, and so we comes to the time around about the weather. I said, let's put the TV on and let's have a look, see where the high pressures are, the low pressures are. Let's see how the winds are blowing, so we know, you know, what to expect and so on. Oh, but we turned it on. We saw these two men, probably late 20s, 30s, somewhere around there, kicking two women on the ground. The women were on the ground, and these two men were kicking them in the face, and you know, it really was horrific. And eventually, you know, one guy arrived, and I guess he did the sensible thing. Before he arrived, he phoned the police, okay, and then he went and tried to intervene, and you know, he got a hiding too, but then the police were there in no time. So he was. So yeah, those sort of things. You can see the Iron Age. You can see how people are really so structured in a particular direction. Okay. Yeah.
And that's a really powerful context, isn't it? Because I just immediately thought, you know, like of your circumstances there, and you know, and it's not a case of, you know, what's easy or anything like that. It's just a case of, you know, being prepared and being awake
Mm.
for what shows up each day, you know. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mm, mm,
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. And you have a choice in
mm,
in that life of waking up,
mm,
getting dressed, and eating.
mm,
You've got a choice. Things happen. You
mm,
choose. Okay, and you either
mm,
choose to align yourself with your soul, which is there waiting for you, knocking on the door. Okay, or you align yourself with your ego.
mm,
Okay, and
mm. And I think too, the other tricky bit about money is, you know, yes, you need it to survive, but you know, all said and done, you know, money is the means to an end rather than the end in itself.
sure.
So the issue surrounding money, you know, for all of us is, you know, it comes back to, well, if this is where I want to, you know, put my energies focused, then the money comes as a consequence of, you know, the level of engagement of whatever you're engaged in, you know. So
Mm, mm.
um you know, and it's, you know, like water, when it meets an obstacle it just goes around it, you know. So
Yeah, you're right.
mm, mm.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
You know, but as you say, it doesn't make it any easier, but it's just a powerful reminder, you know, that it's not about fixing a situation. It is about a way of being, a way of living, isn't it? You know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. So
mm,
I need to, like water, you need to,
mm,
you know, just move
mm.
around it, okay? You know, rather than try and knock it over or do something
Yeah,
to the object.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
yeah, yeah,
mm,
yeah. That's the reality. That is
mm,
reality.
mm.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, like, you know, like at a personal level, you know, we can ponder those things and even ponder the context around it. You know, like, you know, I saw Sadhguru had a you know, one of his daily sayings was, you know, that bringing people into your life, you know, enriches, you know, the life itself, you know, and and in some ways, you know, like an interpretation that could be is, oh, well, I need to find someone, or like, it's not, it's just whoever turns up,
Yes.
just be there,
Absolutely.
you know, and engaged with it, you know. So
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and it's that sort of almost consumerism mindset, is that I have to get something, like there's some sort of transaction associated with it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. Just the people you come into contact with.
Well, that's right, whoever turns up, yeah, exactly
Yeah.
right, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
And when you, like yourself, you're in a retail shop, so you're
mm.
going to have all sorts of different people come in and go in
Yeah, you
your
know,
life. Yeah.
phones ringing and all sorts of stuff, you know. But it's just a
Yeah.
case of being there with that person, you know, you know, to be part of that conversation. You know, I sort of can't remember where I heard it now, but they sort of, oh, actually, I think it was in the book. You know, he was sort of saying, you know, that when you look at like, you know, music or like dance, he says, you know, when someone steps on the dance floor, they don't go in and, you know, with the mindset, oh, I want to end up over there. You know, they go in and they just participate in the dance. It takes them wherever it takes them, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the same
Yeah.
with the music. He said, you know, like if the music was about the crescendo at the end of the end of the piece of music, he says, well, you wouldn't bother with the first part of it, would you? You just go straight to the crescendo. So it's not about that at all. It's how the music carries you, you know,
Mm, mm.
along. It's not about it being a destination as such, you know.
Right. Right.
And that also resonated with me too. That, you know, like, because our business training has always been about goals and milestones and achievements and budgets and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, you know, a deep engaged spiritual life is not about any of those things.
Mm, mm,
It's just about being.
mm, mm.
Mm,
Yeah.
Unfiltered being.
Listen to the music and enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Step onto the dance floor and dance.
Yes. Yeah. Don't step onto the dance floor and dance if you can't dance.
Well, that's right. Yeah, well, that's right. It's funny, because as you know, I take the dog out early in the morning, and there's this woman. I think she must be quite shy or something. I don't know, but she's out there most mornings. Normally just like power walking,
Mm.
and it's sort of just before daybreak, so it's sort of half light. And it was sort of funny. I could see her sort of walking towards us, and she mustn't have seen us. So we must have been, there was trees behind us or something, which sort of hid our silhouette a bit. And she was out there dancing during her walk, and I thought, "Oh, good on you," like she's really. But as soon as she saw us, it was just a power walk again. So.
Oh, shame.
I thought, "Oh, good on you." So it's good to see someone, joyful and in the
Yes,
moment.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And she's come into your environment. Enjoy it.
yeah, well, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
was I talking about you? Was I? Yeah. And that's sort of an important time of day for me because, as we're out there walking,
Yeah.
at the moment, Venus is so bright in the eastern sky,
Yeah.
it's just brighter than the moon, actually, and
Okay.
the first thing you notice when you walk outside is this beaming, planets up there,
Yeah. Okay.
and when you compare it to everything else that you see in the sky apart from the moon, you sort of think, well, it's actually quite close. It's actually quite close, So yeah.
And what is it? What is it? Venus.
Yeah, Venus. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't. We've had clouds just about for an entire week now. Sort of.
Yeah, well, we've got wet weather coming in tomorrow again. So.
Yeah, ours hasn't. It has been a little bit wet, but it's just basically been cloud.
Yeah.
And we've got a cyclone off our coast. That's.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's still in the northwestern. It's moving. I'm watching it on the satellite image on my computer. It's going to affect us on Friday in Perth. But
so does it tend to sort of come down down the coast? Does it?
Not normally, no. Last year they sort of all stayed up north, Western Australia, and if they ever made landfall, then it was always up north, and we weren't affected. This one is staying out at sea and coming down, so it's an unusual sort of movement, but it's nowhere near Perth yet, and it seems to not be heading towards land at all. So,
but they have a dramatic effect on the neighbouring weather pattern, don't they? Literally, thousands of kilometres either side, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So, you will get the effects. The way it's moving now, probably, as I say, Friday might be. We might get the wind and some of the cloud and stuff that pushed into it. But at the moment, it's all sort of staying out at sea. But as you say, it would probably be 1,000 kilometers or so that we'll feel the wind. Yeah.
Whenever we get them on the east coast, the first signs that you see of it, even when it's right out to sea, is the storm surge. It pushes up the waves and the tides and just pushes the water up. And as it comes closer to the east coast, then the winds start to build and storms and all of that sort of stuff. But the first sign of it is normally the ocean itself. The ocean becomes quite unsettled.
Right. Yeah.
And when they do cross, and again, it's a bit like in the west, it's typically up in the north. When they do cross the land, they quickly form into a rain depression, and sometimes they cycle back out to sea, then they, reinvigorate,
Yeah.
come back in, sort of ricocheting backwards, almost a pendulum effect, So,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
it's amazing how quickly they dissipate once they hit land.
Mm.
They normally within 24 hours they've degenerated into like a rain depression.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But on the eastern seaboard, those rain depressions typically wander down the coast then, so.
Mm. Mm.
So during cyclone season or monsoon, that's when you tend to get your wettest seasons, So
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when you look at that flood event that we've just had, it was just a low pressure system which just parked itself, just near Fraser Island, which is, just to the north of Brisbane, and it just parked itself there and just did not move. And it just dumped rain and dumped and dumped and dumped, So
Yeah. Yeah.
and of course, when you've got that much water falling out of the sky, it's got nowhere to go, So,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and at the same time, it's pushing up the ocean. So you've got these big king tides, and we've got all this water trying to get out of the river system out to the ocean, and just got nowhere to go. So,
Mm. Mm.
and that's why the waters rose so quickly. Literally within like 12 hours. There's some of the rivers, like there's one probably about 15 or 20 kilometers to the south of where I am here. The river rose about, I think they said about 25 meters in about 12 hours.
Sure.
That's a lot of water, isn't it? It's a
Sure.
lot of water.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm.
Mm.
It's hard to imagine that volume of water coming out of the sky, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
But it did. And I know here even, that I've never seen rain like it, and it was just hours of it. And like the gutters couldn't cope, the drains couldn't cope. It was just relentless,
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, where does it come from? How does it develop? Anyway, yeah, one of those.
but it does, like to cycle back to what Igor says, it's like if you need evidence, just open your eyes and look around.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
had a terrible summer, the opposite, with the
Mm.
heat being, record heats. And yeah.
Days on end of it, wasn't it? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, slowly trying to piece together the garden again.
Mm. 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 I think the garden is such an important role too, even from a spiritual perspective, just that connection with the earth.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
also, the ability to produce food and enjoyment and relaxation and all of those things. It's right there before us. And as you might have seen, Sadhguru is often his 100-day pilgrimage for soil.
Okay.
So I listened to a short speech by one of the lords in London, as part of his start of the 100-day motorcycle ride.
Yeah.
And I thought it was sort of fascinating because the Lord said, from the House of Lords, he said, he says, we've seen so many presentations and scientific reports about climate change and all of that sort of thing. And he says, virtually none of them mention soil. He said they talked about the weather and they talked about climate change and they talked about, heating and cooling. He says, but no one really talked about the soil.
And what are you referring to? What's he referring to? You were talking about.
Well, he's sort of saying that. Basically, it's save the soil, which is basically get get tree cover back over the earth so that organic matter can fall into the soil, because there is no organic matter in there, you know. So
yeah, okay.
It's just dead. And the way to, you know, improve the health of the soil is to, you know, get trees, and because if there's no trees, it affects the, you know, the rainfall and the microclimate and all of that sort of thing. So
yeah.
you know, so it's just sort of saying you've got to look after the soil, because if you don't look after the soil, then it'll affect food production, it affects the climate, it affects everything, you know. So and he's got some urgency attached to it, because he's basically saying that, you know, the large tracts of soil on the planet, you know, may not have any longer than 50 or 60 years to go on this trajectory, you know. So
yeah,
you've got to act now. You know?
Yeah, it's going to die. The soil's going to die. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. And you know, like, it's part of Eagle's disbelief. It's just like, so what do we have to do to get people just to change their behavior? You know,
Yeah,
you know, like this sort of consumeristic thing, or using it as an infinite resource when it's not. It's clearly a finite resource, and goes to, you know, water quality and availability and food production and, you know, the climate itself, and, you know, there's so many things. And
right.
you know, and it was sort of funny because, again, on that walk I had this morning, there were these two young girls walking in the opposite direction to me, and it says, you know, how you sort of just catch a snippet of the conversation, you know. And as they walked past me, one of them was saying, "Oh, I'm going to go and treat myself to a shopping trip." You know, and I'm thinking to myself, goodness gracious, go out there and buy things that I don't need and probably can't afford.
Treat myself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you treated yourself to a haircut.
I did. Well, that wasn't so much a treat, though. That was conscious decision with well, part of that process, I think, was a final rebellion against, you know, that corporate person, you know. So
okay,
because it was like, well, why am I cutting my hair like this? Because you've always done it, you know, it's part of the corporate appearance. I said, okay, well, I don't believe in that anymore, so I stopped. And then when it did come time to say, okay, but you're also not this person, so get a haircut, but have it cut differently. So I did.
That's absolutely, yeah, it looks good. Yeah, it definitely looks good. Yeah, suits you. Yeah, that other one didn't suit you. The long hair didn't suit you.
No, it didn't, did it? It was no, that voice was loud and persistent. It's like, what the hell are you doing? An internal dialogue.
Yeah. You earlier you mentioned Venus, and it's Venus is so interesting. You know, Moya says when planet Earth will get thrown off its axis and so on in a long time to come, then the rest of the age and what's got to be learnt and so on before Armageddon, it will be on Venus. Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I still don't understand it, but because, you know, I know Venus is on the surface of Venus is incredibly hot. Okay.
Hot and acidic, apparently. Apparently, it rains liquid metal.
I can understand that because the temperatures are like thousands of degrees Celsius. Okay, it's like a welding iron type of temperature, and so then I sort of I consoled myself thinking, well, it won't be in this dimension, then it'll probably be in another dimension that they will, and there, of course, it's very different. That heat is in this dimension. And but the interesting thing that I read about Venus, and that is that you can, the further you come away from the surface of Venus, okay, you get to a very amicable type of climate, okay. I'm not sure how far, whether it's a kilometer up or something like that, but I'm not sure how far up. And then, of course, Venus's gravity is much stronger than Earth's. And so you could live about a kilometer up at on top of Venus. In other words, you could build there, okay, and you could literally have platforms and houses and buildings and so on, and live probably better than on Earth, okay, because of the ideal situation of the climate in Venus. And yet we don't hear anything about it. Nobody's saying, well, let's go to Venus, or let's, I think they will. I think, once they start struggling with Mars, and Venus is closer than Mars anyway to Earth.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I'm not sure, when somebody, well, maybe it'll be Elon Musk who says, let's, because he wants to get on out and past. But Venus, it's interesting because, of course, of what Moya said. And so I'm particularly interested in knowing more about it. And NASA, they've got probes around there. They've got probes everywhere at the moment. They're really going all out to get information. And so, who knows, maybe, when you actually get into Venus, maybe that's the solution. I don't know, but just the surface of Venus is just not on at the moment.
And I think that's an interesting point that you raised too, because, the assumption or the mindset is oh, we live on the surface of the planet. Well, why?
Yes. Yeah. Especially when the gravity and the moisture in the air is all ideal for humans to live. Excuse me. Yeah. So,
and with the sort of climate on Mars at the moment, I mean, who knows? It might be under the surface. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Well, there's a frequency on the Moon and on Mars of water. So I guess we'll first get to see the Moon to see what happens.
And water may be one of those elements that's abundant throughout the entire cosmos, perhaps. I mean, I don't know. But...
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It really is.
Yeah. And there's some moons in our cosmos as well that are bountiful with water. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
there's new discoveries or at least new announcements anyway every other day. And there was one there that was saying that the solar system is actually in a bubble. That they've said they've sort of detected that. The solar system itself is in a bubble, and ironically, the sun is not the center of it.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Yeah. Okay. I wonder what they mean by bubble.
I don't know. It must be like an energy field or something, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
So the Iron Age, eh?
The Iron Age, yeah.
So it's sort of, is it one of the shorter stages too?
It was programmed to be about 132,000 years, okay? But Moya says it will finish long before its scheduled time, okay, long before the scheduled. At the moment, we're only, about 3,000 years into it, okay? So, still, I mean, there's still theoretically still another whole root race to finally, come to fruition on the planet. Okay, he calls it the tan, the race of tan. Okay, everybody will basically be the same skin color, and so that root race still has to fully manifest itself. I mean, you can see it everywhere at the moment, but yeah.
So the brown skin.
Yeah, the brown skin, and and we this age is also that we're in now is also part of the space age. As Moya calls it in some of the. So there's during the next root race, there's going to be quite a substantial calming, peaceful and pleasant and so on. But that could be a long time ahead. He hasn't indicated, and he never does indicate a time limit for anything. Okay. So yeah.
Interesting. Have you heard from him lately?
No, I haven't. Yeah.
He was starting to become a bit more active, wasn't he? But then it seems to have dropped off again.
No, he is. In that sense, as far as frequency is concerned, it perhaps has been a little bit more frequent this year than historically. But I think whenever they send something on WhatsApp, then I forward it to you. One was probably about, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, I think it was about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, then. Well, I guess we should probably leave it at that tonight, should we?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, they're good. Tomorrow I'm going to the osteopath.
Oh, okay. Is that over the sore leg?
Yeah, the calves. I made an appointment a week ago. I've tried everything from my side, all my research and all attempts of doing this, that, and the other thing, and it's ridiculous. I mean, I can't go for a walk. Okay, it's as simple as that. And it wakes me up at night time and stuff like that. So it's been a long time. It's been months now that I've been trying to do the different things and just can't find anything that. So I sort of intuitively know it has to do with the nerves, but I don't know what more I can do. So I thought, well, let me go and get. I didn't even know an osteopath existed. It was my daughter in the Netherlands who said, why don't you go and see an osteopath? But I think you will be pleasantly surprised. So I read up about it and I thought, okay, that's fine. So I made an appointment. So we'll see.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll let you know on Sunday.
Okay, well, you take care then, and I'll talk then.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Thanks for chatting. Cheers.
All good. See you.
Bye. Bye.